QuickBooks Online. Our presenter today is Katie Dane. Katie runs Little Fish, which is a company that can help you with QuickBooks and help you with lots of things like that. Today, we're going to be talking about QuickBooks Online, optimizing your QuickBooks. Katie's been working with QuickBooks Online since 2015. So let me see, we got about 6 years. So the product has evolved and changed over that time. And I think it's a much better product back when it was in 2015. And still a few people are curious about it. Maybe you haven't used it. Maybe you have used it. Which brings up what I'd like to do is find out about that first. So we're going to do a little poll, if you don't mind. So I'm going to put this poll up, and we are going to launch this poll. And I'm going to ask you, have you used online? Have you used the desktop, both, or none of the above? So I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll. And then if our attendees could chime in on that and tell us what you have used and haven't used, that'll be interesting. And that'll give maybe Katie an idea of who's online here as well, and maybe how we can answer some of your questions or help. I'll give that just another few seconds to answer that. All right, so it looks like we have about 11 people that have answered our poll. And so the question was, have you used desktop or the online version of QuickBooks? And I gave you a multiple choice here. So 36% of people have used the online version of QuickBooks. 27% of people have used the desktop version of QuickBooks. Nobody has used both online and desktop. And another 36% of the people have used none of the above. So they haven't used online or desktop. Okay. And I will just tell you, thank you very much, everybody, for getting into that poll. I will just tell you, as a longtime desktop user from the past, switching over to online is a little bit of a learning curve channel, because things are in different places and they look differently. But once you learn it, it can work more smoothly than the desktop version. Okay, I'll send it over to Katie, and she can take it away, and I will monitor the chat.
All right, thank you guys for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you today about QuickBooks, and thank you for taking the time to answer that poll. It does help me when I am talking about this stuff to know how much you guys know, so that I can give a clear picture for you. So today we're going to be talking about QuickBooks Online, and one of my main goals that I would like you to take away from this webinar is to see your bookkeeping as a valuable part of your business, as opposed to just a business related chore. So yes, admin and bookkeeping are a chore that you have to do when you own a business, but there's a lot of value there, and it becomes a lot more enjoyable to do once you start to see the value, and once you start to see the ways that it can actually really help you in running your business, beyond just not getting in trouble with the IRS. No, we don't want that. The first thing that I want to talk about is, what is the right bookkeeping tool, especially because some of you guys have never used QuickBooks Desktop or QuickBooks Online. And I don't know if that means you're using a different kind of software, or if you're just using a spreadsheet for your bookkeeping. So it's important to think about what the right tool for bookkeeping is for your business. And the first step in this is to know your business. Are you a solopreneur? Like, are you the only person working at your business? That will make a difference. Do you need to track mileage for your business? Are you traveling a lot for business related things, or do you have a vehicle that belongs to the business? Yeah, do quarterly estimated taxes stress you out? Is that like a big cause of stress in your life? I know for a lot of people it is, because it's like, well, how do I know how much to pay? What do I have to do? And are you having trouble keeping up with your books? So these are all questions you could ask yourself to kind of start to figure out what's going to be the best choice for you. And A really good option, if you answered yes to one, to all of these, could be QuickBooks Self-Employed. And that is a product made by Intuit that is designed for self-employed people who are the only employee of their business. It's a newer tool and it's super cost effective. It's only $10 a month, which is a really nice option for people who are just looking to kind of get help with the basics. It's designed to be used on your phone, but you can use it on the computer. And it's really helpful because the main thing it does is separate business and personal expenses. So you can hook it up to your account and say like, okay, this was personal, this was business, tracks your mileage for you. You can use it on your phone to track your mileage. You would just turn it on when you get in the car and then it would start tracking. But what I really like about it is it will give you your estimated tax payment amounts every quarter and remind you when they're due, so that you can go in there and say, okay, I should have to pay about this much as my estimate this quarter. It's due on the 15th. Go and pay it and check it off. So just wanted to let you guys know about this tool because, again, it is really affordable and a really good tool if you're just starting out. I actually used this to do my own bookkeeping when I was first starting out before my company got a little bit bigger. But I've used it myself and it's really good. So that's something to be thinking about if you're looking for a simpler bookkeeping solution, and maybe if you're transitioning from spreadsheets to something, this could be a good transitional tool. Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit more of the bookkeeping basics. And so I'm going to start by talking about balance sheet accounts. General ledger accounts is what they're sometimes called too. And these are used for tracking assets, liabilities, depreciation, equity. And my best advice if you're starting out with these accounts is to get in touch with an accountant. If you're just like setting up your books and you have a lot of things that would fall into these general ledger account categories like assets and liabilities, etc. I would say to get in touch with an accountant because there is a lot of technical stuff that can go into setting these up. It's also a good opportunity to develop a relationship with an accountant who could help you with your taxes, etc. But yeah, you're going to have a few balance sheet accounts, even if you don't have a lot of assets or liabilities, because your bank accounts would also kind of fall into this category, or credit card accounts.
I know, I totally agree with you. That balance sheet can be a whole different animal. People get confused about what is that balance sheet, what's depreciation, what is a fixed asset, a current asset, and so we really talk about, a couple of about 2 or 3 different types of reports. When we talk about accounting, we have a balance sheet, we have a profit and loss, and we have a cash flow. Those are the 3 main reports that you would use in your business. We're going to focus on the profit and loss statement, or the income and expense accounts today. But yeah, I totally agree with Katie on that whole balance sheet thing. We could spend half the day just talking about balance sheet accounts and what they are and how they work and how to use them. But yeah, so we're just not going to stress about the balance sheet today. We're going to talk about income and expenses.
Yeah, because I just think that, again, the balance sheet is more complicated and it's just going to serve you better to have a professional help you with it, because it's a lot of learning up front and you're probably never going to use it again. So, bank accounts, like I mentioned, those are balance sheet accounts, but these are ones that you're going to use more in your day-to-day. One really big tip I have with the bank accounts in QuickBooks Online is to use account integration. So they have a really nice feature where you can connect your QuickBooks to your bank account and import transactions in from the bank. And that is helpful, although it does have its limitations. I think it can usually, if used correctly, save you a lot of time. Then I just am going to go into the types of bank accounts a little bit. So obviously there's checking and savings that you can enter. Credit card accounts, loans would be a bank account. So yes, this is important to know if you're setting up your QuickBooks Online. You cannot link your bank account to your QuickBooks until you've created a bank account in QuickBooks. So like if you don't have an account made up in your books, that's like, checking account, then the software won't let you link your bank account to your QuickBooks Online, but it won't explain why also. So if you've been trying to link your bank account before setting up the actual accounts in the books, that could be the reason why it's not working. I've seen a lot of people.
We have a question about, can you integrate more than one bank account in QuickBooks?
Yeah, you can actually. You can integrate as many as you have, as far as I know. I've never seen someone have too many. The most I've ever seen linked up is 3. So
okay.
Yeah, and that would be like a credit card, a bank account from like maybe 2 different banks, or sometimes a savings and a checking.
So do those have to be just checking accounts, or could you link up a savings account too at the bank, because they're different
Yep,
numbers?
you could link up a savings account, and you could also link up a credit card account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. So if you're going to set up your bank accounts for the first time, this is for you first-time people, you're going to want to have your bank statements available for as far back as you're wanting to enter them. Usually I recommend going to the beginning of the current year if you're setting up your books for the first time. And obviously your credit card statements if you're going to be entering your credit card. Same time frame, unless you're starting your bookkeeping from like today, then you just go to the most recent before today. And loan statements, again, if you're going to be entering loans. And then I just have a little bit more about the account integrations, but I think we've covered that pretty well. But you can now automate all of the minimal transaction entries. So the artificial intelligence in QuickBooks Online is becoming more sophisticated, and they do a really good job of like identifying recurring transactions and the accounts that you had assigned them to. So like, for example, if you every month buy postage from the post office because you're shipping out a lot of products, QuickBooks will start to see that amount from the post office and coming in every month, and it'll say, oh, I'm going to put the USPS transactions into a postage account, which is where you assigned it. And that can sound kind of scary because like, oh my goodness, what if the computer puts it in the wrong place? Yes, that does happen. But the computer does not actually enter these transactions into your books. It just provides suggestions. So it will set up the transaction to be entered and say like, okay, it's going to go into this account. This is who it's for, whatever. But you have to review it and approve it and tell it to put it in your books. So it can just save you time of like filling in all the data for each transaction as it gets to know your transactions, but you will still be the one making the final call of what gets into your books and what doesn't. And you can have total free reign to change anything the computer suggests. But
so we're still in charge, in other words.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, but it can save you time to when you're just like entering stuff to have some of it pre-entered. Okay, and now we're going to touch on income and expense accounts.
Oh, I have a question that I think.
Yeah.
So let's say that I enter some things into QuickBooks myself,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've also got my bank account set up so it integrates from my bank account.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if I've entered it in QuickBooks manually myself, and then when it goes to the bank picks it up? How does that?
That's a really good question. Yeah. The bank feeds, they do bring in all of the transactions that went into the bank. So like, let's say you wrote a check for, we'll say cleaning, for $100. And so when you wrote that check out to your cleaning people, you entered it into QuickBooks. Check $200 for $100 to the cleaning people. And then when that's cashed, the bank feed is going to show that money coming out. So you kind of have 2 transactions there, the one you entered and the one that came in from the bank. So in that scenario, when you have already entered something, instead of adding the bank transaction into your bank, there's a button that says match. And again, I mentioned the artificial intelligence is getting pretty smart. So they'll say, oh, the computer will say, this is check 200 from the bank, and this is check 200 that you entered. Do you want to match those? And so when you match them, it actually does not put the one from your bank feeds in. It puts the one you entered and connects it to the one from the bank feeds and enters one transaction. So instead of, again, re-entering what came from the bank, it says the thing from the bank is actually this thing you entered. It's connected now, if that makes sense. So that's a matter of,
that sounds great. That sounds
yeah, using the match versus add button. And we can look at that a little bit more if we have time to go into the QuickBooks demo. I can show you kind of how that looks. But yeah, so that's how you would handle that. Okay, income and expense accounts. This is where I spend most of my time as a bookkeeper. They're really helpful. I really like doing work with them. And I hope that by the end of this, you will enjoy working with them a little more too. So I like to think of income and expense accounts as telling a story. What you're really doing with these is you're saying, where did the money come from? Where's the money going? It's showing the history of what you've done. And that kind of helps me as a more creatively minded person, as opposed to a more numbers oriented person, to think of it as, okay, I'm telling the story, I'm reporting on what I've done. It's easier than thinking of like, oh my goodness, do the accounts all match up and the numbers and the balancing and all that. These accounts are for you. Because they really help you to make informed decisions about your business. The IRS, as far as income and expense accounts are concerned, you could basically be like, you know, money coming in, money going out. It doesn't matter so much to them exactly what you spent it on usually. But it's really helpful for you to know, like, okay, I get this much income from selling, you know, rubber ducks as a product, but I have to spend this much on expenses for making rubber ducks. And so it's helpful to see and to connect the dots of like how things relate to each other in your books. A little homework for you. Write down some of the main goals that you want to track for your business, and then start thinking about how accounts can help you. So yeah, I like to look at them through the filter of goals. So for example, with my business, one of my goals is to, see what's a good example. Let's say to get 3 new clients by the end of the year. Okay, so how can I track, like, if I'm getting those clients? Well, maybe you would track the expense you're using on advertising to like try and connect with people, or maybe you track the income coming in from your current clients to see if you really need 3 new clients or if you could make do with 2, or to track how much each new client is going to pay you and what level of service you're going to sell them. So, you know, well, maybe I don't need 3, maybe I need 1 big one and 2 little ones, or like 1 big one and 1 little one, I guess. So just kind of think about some goals. And then if we have time at the end and you guys want to talk about it, we can look at what kinds of income and expense accounts you might want to track to help make those goals easier to visualize through your books. Okay. Next, why do we do accounting? We've touched on this a little bit. I'm just checking the time, but not too much. So obviously we do accounting to make the government happy. We don't want to get in trouble with the IRS, right? And bookkeeping obviously helps with taxes and leaving a trail for if you're audited, very important. And it's generally a good business practice, but also it can do so much more for you beyond that. I like to think of bookkeeping as something that's really for you, not for the government. It is for the government, right? But like, there's value there for you. Here's some reasons I think that you should get excited about doing your accounting. It helps you to know if your business is profitable. I know so many people who are out there running their businesses and just hoping that it's good enough. Like, well, I hope that we're doing okay. I hope that we can, you know, make it the next 5 years. I hope I don't owe too much on my taxes, but like if you're doing good bookkeeping, good accounting, you're going to know if your business is profitable, and you're going to know if you need to make adjustments to increase your profitability. And that
Right.
just brings up.
It's really about making those decisions, right? I mean,
Mhm.
looking at your profit and loss report, your income and your expenses, and trying to make those decisions, which are going to help make you more profitable, or not spending time where you don't need to spend time. So I love your idea of bookkeeping is for you and not for the government. So you do it for you first, and
Yeah.
then for the, oh, by the way, Mr. Government, here's your stuff.
Yeah. And I think, it's just really valuable in a lot of ways. The next thing is, so you can apply for grants and loans more easily. I know with 2020 and the pandemic, we have all probably learned a lot more about applying for grants and loans than we maybe did before. I know that I have, and I've worked with a lot of nonprofits in the past, so I've applied for a few grants. But it's nice to have your books in order, because then you can apply for the grant. You have the documentation all in one place. It's going to make your life a lot easier compared to like, okay, I want to apply for a loan or a grant. I got to go collect all my receipts. I got to get all the bank statements. I got to find all this stuff, versus just having it there and having it ready when it's time to report. So I think that makes your life a lot easier in that capacity. Also, so that you can get paid more efficiently. We're going to go into it a little bit, but QuickBooks Online offers a lot of good tools to help you get your money from your clients and your customers faster. So stay tuned. And then again, so you can easily track down information. It helps to protect you if a client comes and says, oh, like you overcharged me for this, or like I paid that invoice. Well, you can go back and check with the money that came into your bank already matching your books. You can say like, okay, client, here's your account statement. It does not look like you paid. If you did, the money did not come into my account. And it's easier to communicate with your customers or clients that way, because you have the information really accessible. Okay. Now we're going to talk about, okay. Sorry if this is moving a little bit quickly between things, but I want to make sure we can cover a lot of stuff. So products and services are in QuickBooks Online. If you are using QuickBooks Desktop, this would be called the item list. And setting up your products and services is a really good and important step in your bookkeeping, if you're using QuickBooks, for a lot of reasons. But it saves you time when you're creating invoices, because you're just going to pull the products or the services directly into the invoice with a pre-written memo and price, and the tax is all set up. So it does help you with sales tax calculation, because you'll say, okay, I sell websites, and when I sell a website, I need to make sure that, the graphic design costs this much. So I'll enter graphic design service, this much money, and you can enter all the little pieces. And you can also differentiate like, okay, a website probably wouldn't have sales tax on it because it's not a physical piece that you're giving someone, selling someone. We'll get into the details of that another day. But maybe you sold them something to go with it, like a banner or something for their business as well. And the banner, because it is a physical product, would have sales tax. So you could say, okay, if I'm selling graphic design on a website, that item does not have sales tax. But anytime I sell a banner, that item does have sales tax. And you can add two different items onto an invoice, and it would calculate the sales tax on one and not on the other. So it's very helpful. It's also valuable for communicating with your clients, because it allows you to put notes. It's a very client-facing part of the books. It's like, okay, you just bought, a pamphlet for me. Here's a little thank you note, or here's a description of the product, that kind of thing. And then another good product and service tool is they call it a bundle in QuickBooks, But essentially what you can do is you can merge different products or services together internally in the books, but you would not, the client wouldn't see it. So like, for example, with the website, if you're selling like a website, you might want to track graphic design costs this much, programming costs this much, content creation costs this much, but you don't want the client to see all of those things. So instead, you just show them, okay, a website costs this much total, but in your books, you'd see graphic design, content creation, and programming as parts of that. So that's really a helpful tool. I'll show you how to do that. If you don't want your clients to see them. Okay, so now we're gonna see some screenshots from within QuickBooks. That's gonna go through the process of setting up a new product or service. Bundle specifically. So you can see here, if you clicked on, we're in the products and services tab under sales, and you can bring up new, so like a new product and service, and you can select a bundle right here. You can also have an inventory, non-inventory, or service. And so you give the bundle a name. Again, like in my example, a website build, and you could put a description. And then you would add down here in the, I'm pointing, but you can't see me pointing. You'd add in the product and services at the bottom, the different pieces that are going to go into that bundle. So like the content creation, the programming, and the graphic design. And then you just save and close that, and then you'd have it there. So here's an example. This is a front garden package. He's got a description in here. So it can show you, the client's going to see the name and the description. But internally, you're going to see that it's got gardening, design, installation, and product cost. And you can save and close that. And so then anytime you're making a new invoice for a front garden, you will be able to enter all 4 of these different things by just putting in front garden. It's super easy. And you can then customize the quantities to match the garden that you're working on that day. So I think that's a really helpful tool, because a lot of times people are like, well, I don't want my clients to see that. You don't want your client to see the cost of sod, because they might be like, well, I just will go buy my own sod. What on earth? So very helpful. Okay, and so here's an example of how that product looks on an invoice. So what your client would see is this front garden package and the subtotal. But you can see, okay, it's got all these different parts and sod has tax on it. So, all these different things that are gonna go into it. There is $0 entered on this invoice for the sod. So that's why there's no taxable subtotal. But if you put an actual dollar amount there, you'd see a tax amount down here. Okay. So that's just a little bit on products and services, and one helpful tool that I think a lot of people don't know about in the product and services area. If anybody has any specific product and service related questions, let me know and we can talk about them after. Okay, we're going to go into now sales tax and how to get your sales tax set up in your QuickBooks. This is going to be like a couple questions you're going to need to figure out before you start the process of setting up your sales tax. So the first is, do you do business in more than one state? Which agencies do you need to pay sales tax to? And what is your filing frequency? So these are all things you should know if you've been working with sales tax in your business in the past. But if you're a brand new business and you're setting this up, these are things you need to figure out when you're setting up your sales tax account with the state or various states if you have multiple places. And where are you located, right? You should know that one off the top of your head.
So Katie, I have a question about frequency.
Okay,
so
yeah.
We deal with clients or people that are starting up their business from the get-go, from zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the state of Minnesota has requirements of how often you file your sales tax frequency based on your liability that you might have. But when you're starting your business from scratch, you don't know what those, hopefully your consultant has helped you and you've got an idea of what your income and sales tax might be, but you really don't know.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, for filing frequency, do you have any recommendations that you would tell people to set that up to begin with? Do you think they should set it up as yearly or quarterly?
That's a really good question. I think most people set it up as quarterly is what I've seen. And that's not too often. And if you're gonna have to do it more than quarterly, it should be like pretty obvious, like to you based off of your estimated income. But one thing is you can say like, okay, I'm going to start filing it quarterly. And as you get into your business and you start running it in that first year and you realize like, oh, I'm not selling enough taxable items to really be needing to do this quarterly, you can change it later on to be like an annual.
At least with the state of Minnesota, you can go back in
Yeah.
and change that to yearly if you need to.
Yes. And I have not worked with a lot of other states for sales tax specifically, but I know for Minnesota, you can change it. I think for Wisconsin too.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
So I think quarterly is probably a good starting point.
I would agree. That's what I would suggest. And the other thing too is it's okay to like do quarterly and then file zero. Like you don't get penalized for filing zero. So if you like do quarterly and that's not enough and you file a couple of 0 quarters, that's okay. They're not going to be like, oh man, you are in trouble now.
Right. But I don't know how much trouble you can get into, but if you sign up for sales tax quarterly, and even though you have 0 and you don't file quarterly, then they will give you a reminder and start to tell you, say, hey, you were going to do this quarterly and now we didn't see anything. So
yeah, that's true. You do have to file even if you have $0 of tax. So you still have to hit your quarterly filings if you select quarterly, but you would just file 0. But that is good to know that you would still need to file your sales tax even if you didn't sell anything.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to get into the screenshots of setting up your sales tax. You've answered these questions, you know the information you need, so now it's time to start the process. Okay, so if it's your first time setting it up, this is what you're going to see when you go to taxes. And you're going to click on the taxes tab on the left gray bar, and then the get started button, which is going to open up the tax wizard to help you. So the first thing they're going to ask you to enter is your business address, and they're going to use this to calculate any sales tax you may need to pay. So for example, this guy will have to pay California sales tax, and he might also have some special sales tax for San Pablo, the city, or his county. So it's going to use your address to assess, okay, what do you probably need to pay sales tax to, or which taxes need to be applied. Then you'll click next. And they're going to tell you ask you who collects tax from you. So you'll have an opportunity to enter multiple different tax agencies that need to be paid. So that's kind of what I mentioned with like maybe a use tax or a state or special city tax that you need to pay. This will be where you can enter those. Or again, if you have multiple states, which I don't know that any of you do, but if you do, you would be able to enter like, okay, Wisconsin, Minnesota, wherever you happen to have a location. And then after you enter those, you will click the next button. And again, it mentions even in this wizard, like if you're not sure what you're doing, talk to your accountant. They can help you. And that is always good advice. And if you don't have an accountant, again, you'll probably maybe develop a relationship with one through these processes. Okay, then from there, you're pretty much all set after you select your filing frequency, which is what we were just talking about. And when you're setting this up in QuickBooks, you should already have your sales tax account set up. So you would know, okay, I've applied to do quarterly, yearly, or monthly. And then you just enter this to match what you have in your sales tax entity portal or whatever you want to call it. So once you enter that, you will push save, and you can see kind of here on this little sales tax screen, they do give you like estimates You can't see all of them, but like it'll tell you, okay, if you're paying over 100 to 1200, you're going to be quarterly, you know, that kind of thing. So it will give you some like guesses of like, okay, in this range, maybe this, in that range, maybe that. And it will source that from the sales tax website based off of what agencies you've entered in the previous step. So like if you were doing this, it would be sourcing this information from the Minnesota website. But this guy is from California, so it's sourcing it from California. And then after that step is completed, you can click save, and then it'll bring up this like you're all set situation, and you would just hit continue. And then at this point, you're going to go through and review your products and services and make sure that you have sales tax added into them. So here I've just brought up a sample creating a new service. And you can see at the bottom here, you'll have the option to choose taxable, non-taxable, standard rate, a special category for tax to add that tax onto this particular product or service. So you're going to want to go through each product and or service you have entered and make sure the sales tax that's assigned to it in QuickBooks matches what it should actually be. So here, this is just going to show you what you can pick for the special categories. So if you click on choose a special category when you're doing that, these are some of the options that you're going to see. Automotive repair, construction, IT, lease and rentals. So it does give you some options if you have like a special tax or special kind of product you're selling that would have extra or different taxes on it. So you'll be able to select that to provide a very accurate picture of what kind of tax you should probably be withholding on these items. Okay, and then you're also going to want to review your customers in the customer center and make sure that any like nonprofits that you work with or anyone who's given you information that would mean that they don't need to pay sales tax, that is tracked in here and the reason why. So you can see this bird sanctuary, they're tax exempt, and you have the documentation to go with that. So you can enter the numbers in here and make sure it's linked to that customer. So then again, if you get audited, you'll have a good paper trail to show why certain people weren't paying tax on things. Okay, and then here, this is just going to show you kind of how the sales tax shows up on your invoices. So again, with this sample invoice, you can select tax on like concrete, rocks, and rock foundation. So the little green check marks that say tax, you can either select that or don't select it. So if you want to make sure that like a product is taxed, or if for some reason, like if this invoice was for Amy's Bird Sanctuary, you would uncheck all three of those because she doesn't pay sales tax because she's a nonprofit. And then you're going to see the taxable subtotal at the bottom. And if you're concerned that it doesn't look like it's calculating the sales tax right, you can click, you can see that red box around the tax total and the blue see the math. So if you're concerned and you want to see how it's calculating it, you can click that and it'll bring up this little box over here on the right. And it'll show you, okay, this is how I'm calculating out your sales tax. And it will give you the opportunity to say that doesn't look right, I want to change it and override the amount, which you shouldn't really need to do. If you're doing that a lot, that means you probably have something set up wrong, but it is nice to be able to check things and see how they look. Okay, and then the next piece of sales tax that we are going to cover is the sales tax center. So this is where you're going to see and the numbers and the reports for filing your sales tax and for filling out that information when you are doing your actual reporting on your sales tax on the government website. So it's under the taxes tab, and this is kind of what it looks like. This California fellow does not have any upcoming tax payments due because he is imaginary and we can't actually put real sales tax numbers in for imaginary people. But this is where you'd see stuff and you'd be able to see, okay, if you wanted to view your return from the last quarter, you'd be able to see that here by clicking on view your return. And you'll also be able to see your upcoming tax payments as well. How much time do we have left? Okay, we're going to go through payments really quick, and then we're going to have some time for questions because payments is very cool and helpful.
Yes, we need to pay people.
Yes. So there are 2 plans available in QuickBooks Online. One has a monthly fee and a lower rate per transaction, and the other plan is totally free. So that's really valuable. You get that totally included with your subscription to have people pay you online via bank transfer, or to pay people online via bank transfer or check, or even you could use a credit card. So all merchant service plans would include, you can do all these different cards. So American Express, Master, Visa, Discover, etc. Okay, and so not to confuse you guys, there's 2 different things. One is, and this is what we're talking about now, you getting paid. 2 is you paying other people. And QuickBooks does have free services for both. You paying other people, they will even mail a check to your vendors for you. So it's super helpful, and we won't have time to go through it today. So that's just something to look forward to in the more advanced QuickBooks presentation. But right now, today, we're talking about you getting paid by your clients. And there are going to be a lot of ways to get paid. You'll be able to send your invoices with a pay now button in the email, and your client can just click that and pay you. They could pay you over the phone. They could pay you on a recurring basis. So like if you just want payments auto processed every month on a certain day, that can happen through this. So to set this up, you're going to go into the little gear icon on the top right, and you're going to go to account and settings, and then you can go to payments. And here it gives you the screen that you're going to see. And you'll click on learn more by QuickBooks Payments. And this is what you're going to see. To set it up, you'll enter in your business information and your personal information, of course. And then you're going to add in your bank account. So that's going to be where you want people's money to go. Okay. And then if you have never set this up before, you're going to want to create a payments account, which you'll be able to do in that same payment screen. The master administrator of QuickBooks needs to complete the setup for this. And it is a legal contract that you're entering into with QuickBooks saying, we can put money into your bank account. We can collect money from your clients. So it's important that you do this yourself because you are entering into a contract with Intuit with QuickBooks. So that's kind of the gist on that. But once you have this set up, and it's super easy to set up, that's all the steps. You literally just enter your business, your personal info, and your bank account information. Your clients will be able to pay you right off of the invoice. And after I set this up, I got paid so much faster. And I've set it up for a couple of different clients as well. And they've also said that they got paid so much faster because it's not that whole like out of sight, out of mind situation. It's like, okay, I can pay this right now. I just got it, I'll pay it. Bada bing. And the money comes into your account the next day after it's paid. So you're not waiting for a check in the mail.
Right. So they don't have to get an invoice and print it out and go back into their system and click, bill pay or something like that and send it out. That invoice is going to come in an email and they can put their credit card in or whatever and just pay that back out, right?
Yeah. And I just think it's so helpful, and it's really cool that it is like included with what you already pay for QuickBooks. So you don't have to pay extra for that. That's one of those things like grocery pickup where I'm like, you're not charging me for this? Like, really? So it's a really good tool. I don't think we have a ton of time to go through reporting, so I'll just touch on it quickly. There are really good reporting features in QuickBooks, and it's a tab where you're going to get all of your information out of. And I won't have time to go into the sample account to show you, but I just want to let you know that there are a lot of opportunities to customize your reports in QuickBooks. You don't have to just be like, this is my profit and loss. This is all I will ever see. You can say, okay, I want to filter this profit and loss to a specific account. I want to filter it to a specific product. So you can see like, okay, how much profit am I making off of my rubber duck sales compared to my, bubble bath sales, that kind of thing. So yeah, I just want to let you know there's a lot of opportunities to customize things. And in my second presentation, which is on more in-depth of QuickBooks Online, this is the first thing we start with. So you'll get a chance to see more of that if you register for the next one. But I just wanted to let you know you can customize it. You're not stuck with what you just initially see there. All right, and that's what I've got. So if anybody has any additional questions.
I'm going to do one more poll. I have to
Yeah.
end the first one. Hold on a second. And let's see, I'm going to do one more poll.
All right, stick around for a poll here.
Wake everybody up. And then we do have time for questions too. So you should see this now, and it's what are your concerns when thinking about QuickBooks? So how do I enter my information? When will I have time to do the entry? How do I fix the errors? Who can I get to help?
Yeah, take some time to vote on that. Think about what your biggest concerns are. And that's a good foundation for building your questions too, if you want to learn more about any of those things.
Okay, it looks like 70% of the people have voted.
Great.
And let's see what the crowd says. So 11%, how do I enter my information? 56% are worried about fixing errors, and 33% are wondering about who they can get to help. So I will end that polling. So one question we have come in.
Mm-hmm.
One of my bigger questions is, how do I know what to tax?
Oh, that's a good question. So sales tax is pretty complicated in some ways. That would be a good question for your accountant to ask about your specific products. But the general rule of thumb is if you're selling a physical product that you are trading hands with somebody, and then that item is going to have sales tax on it. And depending on where you live or what that item is, it might change the rate of tax collected on it. But if you're selling like a service or something that is non-tangible, then generally that doesn't have sales tax on it unless it falls into a specific category. So for example, if you are selling a website build service and you're selling the work of programming the website, you would not have to pay sales tax on that because it's not a tangible product. But if you are selling a software like QuickBooks Online, for example, you would have to charge sales tax on that because it is more of a, so like even though a software doesn't specifically change hands, if it's like a product, then that's where you get into the sales tax on it. So that's kind of like a general rule of thumb, but you'd have to look at and have somebody work with you on your specific situation to get more information on what you're specifically selling.
And if I can just add on to that question a little bit, yeah. I think another way to look at that is, so we have different taxes, right? We've got a state of Minnesota tax, we've got a St. Louis County tax, and if you're in Duluth, you have a City of Duluth tax, and Hermantown has a city tax. So I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that if, first of all, what you're saying, you identify whether that service or product is taxable or not. Mm-hmm. We tell QuickBooks that. And if it is taxable, then QuickBooks should because QuickBooks take care of what the rate of tax is as long as you tell them it's taxable.
Yeah, okay, so they do give you the rates based off of your location for whatever items you enter, but you have to tell them like what specifically it is. So you would have to know if it falls into a certain category, if that makes sense. But aside from that, QuickBooks would give you like an estimate of like, based on this year's tax regulations in your area, this is what you should be doing.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Next question is, you were talking about the advanced educational meeting. I don't know. Do we have this scheduled or not?
Yes, Betsy has it on the calendar. I think it's next month in May. Let me look.
So I think that should be on our website, northlandsbdc.org. And if you click on the Get Training button, that hopefully that webinar is set up on there. You can register for that.
Yes.
If it's not set up there on there, it'll be set up there shortly, but I think it probably is already on there.
Yeah, it should be. But yes, there is like a secondary one that goes with this one, but it goes into more advanced detailed things or things that you might use after you've been using QuickBooks for a while. That might still be helpful.
Okay. Any other questions out there? Now's your time. You did a really good job, Katie.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, in fact, somebody just typed in, thank you very much. So unless anybody, one more couple of seconds here, if anybody has any other questions.
Yeah, and if you guys have something you want to talk about more like one-on-one, there is opportunity to schedule one-on-one meetings with me through the SBDC. So if you want to talk more about your specific situation, feel free to reach out to Kurt or your particular SBDC representative, and they'll be able to get you connected with me if you want to talk more about your, again, specific situation.
All right, Katie, can you put your contact information in the chat?
Sure.
The way we work this is Katie is what we would call one of our subject matter experts for the SBDC. So she signed up with a contract just as like I am as an employee. And her some of the things that she can do for you are they're confidential and they're no charge because Katie bills us and we pay Katie through the SBDC through some extra money that we have right now for some independent contract subject matter experts. So if you want to work with Katie, you have to go through the SBDC, which means if you're not a client of the SBDC, you sign up on our website, northlandsbdc.org. You'd sign up for service. You'd get connected with a regular consultant who then would assign you to develop a scope of work and assign you to Katie to work with that. So that's kind of our process on that. So, all right, and Katie, yes, your information is.
Yeah, it should be. I see Beth said she didn't
now.
see it. It should be in there now. If it's not,
it's Katie at littlefishadmin.com.
Yep.
And
or if you want to just look up my website, it's littlefishadmin.com, and then all my contact information is on there too. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank everybody so much for coming to today's workshop. You had some good questions. Katie, thank you so much for doing this for us. You went over some really good things for QuickBooks and a good understanding of the basics of QuickBooks Online and how you get into that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you guys for being on with us today.
Okay, everybody have a good day. And remember, it's going to be really warm Saturday. Go out and enjoy it.
Woohoo! Bye, guys.
Bye.